Hi guys, it's been a while since I posted a video. Today I'll be talking about problems with historiography regarding my dissertation topic. I'm going to be writing on the bombing of Libya back in 1986. The main focus will be discussing whether or not it was a decapitation operation or if the Reagan administration was doing some form of coercive diplomacy. I'll be obviously talking about the bombing itself. I'm also going to write about the downing of Pan Am Flight 103 in Lockerbie, Scotland, as a possible retaliation by Libya. And I also will talk about the Iran-Contra affair because it affected what I call, or a lot of scholars would call, the three pillars of U.S. counterterrorism policy. The three pillars are: we won't negotiate with terrorists. We'll also pressure states that support terrorism, and we'll also bring the rule of law to terrorists. In other words, we'll prosecute them if we actually capture them. The Clinton administration actually added on a fourth pillar, which was offering financial rewards for people who gave information that led to the apprehension of a terrorist. However, I consider that part of Pillar 3 because most law enforcement agencies actually do offer financial rewards for people who actually provide information on any criminal, for that matter. I also will probably talk about defining terrorism. I would have to have some form of definition of terrorism since I'll be talking a lot about terrorism in this dissertation. This is part of the problem with historiography on terrorism or U.S. counterterrorism policy is the lack of a definition. Of course, a lot of the books I'll be looking at and other documents or articles, well, a lot of them are actually dated, particularly during the Reagan administration. Some people might criticize that, well, you're not looking at up-to-date research. Well, I have some items that are, fairly new, but what's nice about reading what you would consider dated information is the fact that they're writing this information during the Reagan administration. So you actually get an indication of what people were talking about back then. And also the problems with defining terrorism. I briefly mentioned in this historiographical paper for the dissertation the problems with defining terrorism. And one of my peers, Catherine, actually mentioned something about it's all about perception, and she used the phrase one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, which is ironic because I actually wrote about that in my blog on WordPress.com, the boydbrief.wordpress.com. I encourage people to check it out. I actually mentioned about perception in regarding to defining terrorism and that particular phrase itself. I remember talking to Professor Paul Wilkinson, who was the expert, really, in the United Kingdom on terrorism. And I talked to him about this particular phrase, and he actually categorically denied that terrorists were freedom fighters. Because, let's face it, what do freedom fighters really, represent? They're representing people who are fighting against a tyranny and they want freedom. Whereas a terrorist, on the other hand, they're actually fighting governments who happen to be free governments. Democrats or democracy. They're fighting against democracy, and what they want to install is usually an authoritarian type of government. Doesn't matter what ideology that the terrorist is fighting for. However, although I agree with what Wilkinson said, in a way I kind of disagree because, really, to tell the truth, it is all about perception. For example, you might consider someone from Hamas as a terrorist. They blow up coffee houses. They shoot innocent civilians. You name it. That's what they do. Whereas someone who's a Palestinian might actually see that individual from Hamas as a freedom fighter. They are fighting for his particular rights. They're fighting for his identity. They're fighting for a statehood of some sort for the Palestinians. So we have to understand that it's all about perception. We also have to understand that yes, there's a lot of holes in defining terrorism. There's a lot of research that really needs to be done. And I'm hoping that my dissertation will help in informing some of those ideas, particularly regarding decapitation operations. Obviously, it doesn't work. Terrorists find ways of getting around it. Yes, you might kill their leader. Well, gee, guess what? They might have trained 2 other people in leadership positions, and it's easier for them to take over and still continue their operations. But coercive diplomacy does work. It actually worked eventually in Libya, I think. Eventually, Gaddafi did give up terrorism, and he actually provided information to us until his end in the 2010s, during a revolution, if you want to call it that, or a coup d'etat. But these are some of the things I'm going to be working on. Plus, I'm going to continue looking for new information or new scholarship on this particular topic. It is kind of hard because there's relatively few new sources on this particular topic. Plus, in addition, some of this stuff hasn't been released yet to the public. I've been waiting for new foreign relations of the United States, particularly for the Reagan administration. They're actually working on a volume on terrorism, but they haven't published it yet. I think it's still in the research phase. So it's kind of frustrating, but I have plenty of documentation. I collected documents over the years, including articles and books and actual government documents. So I think I'm sitting pretty good. I thank everyone for listening. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube. I appreciate it very much if you would. Thank you for your time, and good luck on my fellow students pursuing their dissertation topics.